Okay, guys, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Listen to this. Okay, yeah. My spirit is catching up with a lot of different things going on in the world because this stuff just keeps coming across my vision and I can't stop it. I have to continue sharing as I come along with this information and come across it. It starts to add to the pot that I've already started with Yggdrasil. So now I'll come across this article on this mythologysource.com, and I've actually reached out to this person, Mike Greenberg, who has a PhD in mythology, obviously. I've reached out to him for an interview. We'll see what he says, because I would like to talk to him and just get some extensive knowledge on some of these mythologies and how they're coming back and how they pertain to our world. Now, this is about Svartalfheim in particular, and it is the home of the dark elves. Dark means death. Dark means the opposite. It's the antithesis of light. It means that they practice dark magic. Anything dark means hidden also. So keep these things in mind as we traverse through all of the subject matter that I come up with. Whenever it says dark or black, black means death. And I've been looking into David Steele's work about common law as well. And I don't really, share that kind of stuff with my channel because I don't know that much about it and I don't want to mislead anyone. But we know that symbolism is a heavy influence in our world, and the symbology has deeper meaning than what we were ever told. So once you gain some insight in the world of symbology, it's going to start leading you down a broader path and your eyes are going to open even more. So with the term black, like black ink or black people or black anything, it means dead. It means death. It is equal to death. It absorbs the light. It is the antithesis of light. When you sign your name in black ink, you are basically signing as a dead person. You can go and look all this stuff up with David Steele's work on common law and what is happening with state national information right now. People are actually taking back their status. Now, I am still on the fence about some of this stuff because I feel like you can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you really don't know what you're doing. But there is a thing where these people are forming alliances across the country and across the world, and they are taking back their national status. So I've joined the group and I just kind of listen mostly, but I haven't activated on any of that because I do believe that it's going to be done for us. Like our citizenship, which is actually a legal term, which is actually a corporate term, which means that it's part of admiralty law. We are not legal. Anyway, I'm sort of segueing off of what the subject is here. Do look up these things of which I speak, because again, it's important to have knowledge in all areas of your life. And I just like throwing out little tidbits. So anyway, let me just get back onto topic here. So Svartalfheim, the home of the dark elves. These are the black magicians, black magician elves. Among the 9 worlds of Norse cosmology was the Svartalfheim, the home of the black elves. But the question of who exactly lived there is not as simple to answer as it may seem. Now, as we know, they've been covering up their tracks throughout the world. They've been trying to hide their true identity. And I feel like this is the key right here, that their true identity is they are these elves. They are very tall in stature, and they most likely walk amongst us because some of these beings can live for thousands of years beyond our own, if not just hundreds of years beyond our own. Now, let's keep going because this was published on November 23rd, 2020. All right, the Prose Edda, a collection of Norse legends from 13th century Iceland, details the cosmology of the Norse people. They believed that there were 9 worlds, each of which was the home of a different race of beings. Also, as I go through all this verbiage of that's spoken in Icelandic or Nordic languages, I am going to assault the pronunciation, I'm sure, because, I'm born in the United States of America. Just forgive my lingo as I traverse these words and terms because they're not my native language. Anyway, so onward. One of the 9 worlds was Svartalfheim. The world's name translates as home of the Black Elves, and it is described as a dark subterranean realm. What have they been doing underground, people? Why all these hidden places underneath the ground? Okay, this is why I think this part of Yggdrasil is very, very important, that we look at these worlds underground and comprehend them. While the concept of light and dark elves is popular in modern fantasy, however, the descriptions of Svartalfheim and its residents in the few surviving stories set there do not seem to align with our concept of elves. They always depict elves as all these beautiful, amazing creatures. And I do have something to say about that. This whole idea of light elves and this narrative that ties into the UFO cosmology, which is what they're trying to design, based around Pleiadians and all these other races. I feel like it's still this cosmology of the elves and the giants and the dwarves and all of these things are now being constructed for the age of Aquarius to be aliens from outer space. So let's not get quantum entangled and hurry and grasp on to straws of this new lingo and new terms that they're creating, because as you can see throughout the different ages, they have changed the names of the players of the game. We've got Odin and Zeus and Apollo and like all of these major god players out here in the world, and they've changed names so many times we can't keep up with who's who. And that is all done by design so that we will not know our true history. So we need to stay on point, and let's call these things what they are. These Pleiadians, which are paladins, which are light elves. Okay, I'm just going to break it down as simple as I can because I'm not buying into their UFO narrative anymore. And I do feel like the light beings that we know of as light elves and Aesir from this Nordic tradition are actually using UFOs or light ships to traverse around in Yggdrasil. And, I am open to more information, but I think we need to stick with what the ancient people knew and the cosmologies that they knew. And that's just me. I feel like that's more aligned with the truth than these new narratives that they keep popping out in society. Okay, now, so who were the Svartalfar who lived in this underground world? Who lived in Svartalfheim? In most writings, the world of Svartalfheim, they left the F out, is known as the homeland of the dark elves. Now, dark just means that they are not of the light. They are evil. They are black magic practitioners, okay? And I'm going to show you some things in a moment. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, why couldn't I make that relationship, correlation? Okay, the Svartalfar, which translate as black elves, were held separate from the light elves, who were called Yothalfar. I don't know if that's right. Or Vitalfar. Maybe the H is silent. Vitalfar. Beyond this, however, little is known about these races or their homelands. Svartalfheim is mentioned in only 2 instances, both in the collected stories of the prose Edda. In the first, the gods go to that realm to find chains strong enough to hold Fenrir, Loki's monstrous wolf son. We've seen Fenrir in movies recently. Anything to do with the werewolf and Fenrir and, what was it? The Underworld series where they have the, Fenrir monster. You see how this stuff is tying into what they put in Hollywood? They're telling us the truth, people. They're putting it in our face. They sell it to us as entertainment, and we just don't believe that this stuff is real. But I'm telling you, this stuff is real. And someone or something is apparently trying to keep the imagery in our collective conscience so that we can awaken. And that's kind of what I'm starting to get now, is like maybe someone is trying to get the message into the minds of the masses in a subliminal way. And it's not just to subvert things, but to help us remember who we are. Okay, because I don't know how it all works, how these writers come up with the subject matters and stuff. But you know, people write books and they don't know why, or maybe it's just all occultists giving them information to write about. I don't know how that part works because I was never in that aspect of Hollywood. But this I'm starting to get as kind of like signals, like messages. Okay, continuing in the second, it is the world where Loki finds and captures Andvari to seize his cursed gold. Now, I don't know if Andvari is one of the dwarves. I haven't looked that character up yet. All of this Norse mythology stuff is so new to me, but it's starting to sink into my soul and integrate into all of the other things that I'm now finding and coming across, and the things that we've already seen in our world, in Hollywood, and with the different races that we all represent that are walking around on the earth. I feel like we need to look at this stuff very, very closely and do a lot of introspection within ourselves. Okay, so the Svartalfur are mentioned only once in surviving sources, this time in the poetic Edda. They are called the sons of Ivaldi. And I'm going to enjoy going and looking up all of these people and all these terms and really, you know, immersing myself in this, because the further I go digging, the more information I find. And I want other people to feel inspired to go and find more regarding this Yggdrasil and all of the mythology there. So Loki seeks out the sons of Ivaldi for their crafting skills when he must replace Sif's hair with gold. So if he's talking about any kind of crafting skills, they must be part of the dwarves. And I guarantee you, if I go look up this, it's probably a dwarf. They make two other gifts for the gods, Odin's precise spear and Freyr's magical ship. We've heard of interesting mystical magical tales of like magic carpets and, you know, the staff that supposedly Jesus carries, you know, that turns into a snake and can turn water to wine and do all this amazing stuff. I believe it's all imbibed with someone's consciousness of what their intentions are. When you reach these higher levels of consciousness, I truly believe that you can then make these what we would consider magical artifacts. Because if you learn from Franz Barden, he teaches you how to put your intentions into your jewelry or your magical implements. And he says, don't let anyone ever touch them. That they, you know, they will be imbibed with your consciousness, and they'll hold that, and then you'll be able to use them in your practice. Yes, I do believe that this is a thing, and that they've been trying to tell us all of these things in movies. While these stories all take place in what is called the land of the Black Elves, however, they do not seem to actually concern beings we would think of as elves. Ivaldi, and by extension his sons, are usually called dwarves in modern translations. Their skill in crafting is certainly in keeping with the traditional characterizations of the dwarves. The prose Edda, meanwhile, specifically names the characters found in Svartalfheim as dwarves. Like Ivaldi's sons, they are great craftsmen, this time making the strongest chain ever created. And in another example of a common dwarven portrayal, Andvari was obsessed with keeping and retrieving his gold. Many historians are thus led to believe that those Svartalfur were not, in fact, a type of elf. Instead, the word was an alternative name for the Verger, or dwarves. So we know, based on what we've seen also, if you've watched Lord of the Rings, that, you know, these dwarves are obsessed with gold. And so is the dragon that is down underneath the mountain, you know. So what is it? You know, what is it about gold? Well, I've heard that it can be made into an elixir of long life, so you can actually extend your life force with it, and that they were making white powder gold in Egypt. But I don't know. Let's just keep going down these trails and we'll find out, I guess. This is complicated, however, by another type of elf that is mentioned in the prose Edda. The Dogdalfar, or dark elves, are mentioned in the same text as the land of Svartalfheim. Now, this is this guy's modern interpretation. Over the last 200 years, scholars have proposed many interpretations for the types of elves mentioned in Norse mythology. In the 19th century, influential folklorist Jacob Grimm attempted to tackle the issue of the three races of elves in the Eddas. He proposed that there were three types of elves, but that the dwarves were among them. In Grimm's theory, the elves and dwarves were originally conceived as beings of light and dark in both a spiritual sense and their lifestyles. The dwarves lived below ground, while the elves were said to be shining, bright beings. I seem to want to relate these light elves as being the angels who fell from heaven, who came down to mate with the daughters of men, because they were also very tall. Now, these elves are tall in stature. This is what's been known in history, and what we see them depicted in movies is that they're tall and they can be beautiful, you know, all of these things. So what if some of the light elves came down and they fell in their consciousness and they mated with the humans in Midgard? And then because they were cast away from Odin's domain because of what they had done, you know, when you go backwards down the ladder of consciousness and you want to be in a lower dimension from where you are, you're going to have to come back up the rung somehow. But maybe they did some other offense to offend Odin, and then they just started going even darker down their path, and so they separated at once upon a time. I don't know, I haven't been deep into the story yet, so perhaps, you know, I'm going to leave that out there as a possibility, because these elves are shining ones, you know, just like what's been spoken about in the Bible. So we'll just continue. Because the two types were getting confounded, however, writers felt the need to make the distinction clear in their writing. They began to call them light elves and dark elves. Dark elves and black elves, Grimm theorized, were separate types of creatures. Citing both other folklore systems and a preference for trinities rather than duality, he proposed that the Dogdalfar and Svartalfar were separate races. Sound like two different beings to me, I mean, just in the terminology. Most historians, however, have favored the theory that Dogdalfar and Svartalfar are interchangeable terms and both are used to refer to the dwarves. I don't think so. I don't think that you would do that, especially if it comes from the same language. I mean, if this is Alfar, we know that Alfar means elf, right? And then Dok, if Dok is dark, which I wouldn't know, then perhaps. But Svartalfar. So this is elf. And Svarta just means something else. Short elf, maybe. I mean, you know, short. See? S-H-O-R-T, short elf. There you go. I just translated it for you. Anyway, neither the Dogdalfar nor the Svartalfar are mentioned often in other poems. And when they are pictured, they almost invariably have identifiers of dwarves. Svartalfheim is described as an underground world, which seems in keeping with traditions surrounding the dwarves as well. Yeah, the dwarves dwell underground, but it doesn't mean that they don't have some of the light elves that turn dark with them, you know, that are helping them. And like in The Hobbit, where, you know, the little, what's his name? The Grinchy being, what's his name? I forget. I'll have to look it up. He was a hobbit and he turned dark and he lived underground. So they're telling us again in the movies that, you know, these things are real. Like these myths and legends have their basis in truth. And that is the grasp and the lesson that we need to take from all of this. Okay, according to this theory, then, Svartalfheim is the homeland of the dwarves. And I'm sure that it is, but they probably share it with the dark elves who can practice more magical means, where the dwarves can like create and manufacture all of these amazing tools and weapons and things. Okay, the problem with this theory is that the descriptions of Norse cosmology give a specific home world for the diverger or other than Svartalfheim. The problem with this theory is that descriptions of Norse cosmology give a specific home world for the diverger other than Svartalfheim. Nidavellir, which is also sometimes called Mistheim, is the home of the dwarves. The dwarves would not be the only race to have two homes. The Vanir and Azir gods maintained separate worlds even after they united, but it would be unusual that they, are different factions. I guess it's like religions, religions have different factions of their beliefs, but these are just different clans of beings. I don't know, it's what we do, I guess. As is often the case with Norse mythology, some historians have noted the lack of source material from before the 13th century and believe that much of the duality present in these stories is due to Christian influence. Where have we seen this kind of influence before? The Vatican has subverted many things in our history and in our true past. So they've tampered with a lot, and even the mythological legends. They've thrown some things and confuddled some things, but they couldn't do everything. They couldn't subvert everything. So, there's these little trinkets and breadcrumbs that we have to pick up the pieces and put them back together. While the existence of light and dark beings is not exclusive to Christianity, descriptions of the elves in Snorri Sturluson's writings are similar to those of angels in some Christian texts. What did I just say? The angels of heaven. They're beautiful. They have blue eyes, quite often, and they have blonde hair. They illuminate with their light and, all of this. If terms of light and dark were not used until Sturluson's time, it is possible that the entire concept of Svartalfheim did not exist in the Viking Age religion. A more radical theory has been proposed that agrees that Svartalfheim and the Dark Elves did not exist before the 13th century, but a different reason has given. I think it's supposed to be has been given. A few historians believe that the details of Svartalfheim and the Light and Dark Elves were simply made up by Snorri Sturluson and have been preserved through his writings. I don't believe that this is all hocus pocus, y'all. We've seen the evidence. I've presented it in my presentation on Leak Project. And, what about, we have to question why our society represents each of these 9 realms, why we can see giants and elves and spirits and dwarves and all of these things that this Norse mythology makes up. It just makes too much sense, so we can't just pass this off as bunk. This is some sort of meat and potato in a missing link of information that we need. So in summary, in Norse cosmology, Svartalfheim was the home of the Black Elves. Exactly what these Black Elves were, however, is difficult to discern. I'm going to tell you right now, they are the ones who are controlling our world and have been ever since the fall of Atlantis. Atlantis obviously was over in Africa at the Eye of the Sahara, and you can go look this up in Mauritania, look at the Eye of the Sahara, and look at what Google has to say about Atlantis. And they even put water, which doesn't exist there on the land. People have gone there and said, there's no water here. And they say that there's salt, but you can't even see salt. You just see rocks and flat land. But Google is telling us, without telling us, that the water rings are right there inside the Eye of the Sahara, and it's looking us straight in the face with its eye. And I mean, it's amazing. It's the capital city of Atlantis. You cannot deny this. But, and that's how they trick us and fool us and lead us along. They're not going to have any scientists go dig there because the scientists wouldn't get funding if they actually found it. So they have to go dig around the world and get the money from us, really, government funding and all these grants and all this stuff to go play out in the world while you and I have to go work as slaves. So that's very disappointing. that this stuff happens. And then they don't really find anything. I mean, they might find some things under the ocean like they did with the Bimini Road and some of the pyramids, you know, that's under the sea there. But I just, it's frustrating to me because I want to go out and explore and find all these things too. But, you know, who's going to fund me to go chase down some of these tales and stuff? I mean, I would have to have 1 million subscribers like some of these people do. I don't know. It just takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I just want to know the truth. I just want to cut through to the chase and let's get to the bottom of this. And so I feel like this Yggdrasil is a huge chunk of the story that we're missing. Okay, in most stories, the residents of Svartalfheim seem to be indistinguishable from the Diverger or dwarves. In some cases, Svartalfheim is named as the location of a myth, but the characters involved are called Diverger by the writer. Simply saying that Black Elf was another term for dwarf is a popular explanation, but it also seems incomplete, and I do believe that as well. I don't think they're full elf. You know, they don't have the ears and all that stuff. The dwarves don't. They're just a shorter version of something else. Okay, another world was named as the home of the dwarves, so it seems unlikely that Svartalfheim could have been theirs. The further mention of Dokkalfar or dark elves further complicates the theory. And, you know, they muddy the waters so that we can't really pick up the trail. Many historians have attempted to explain the nature of Svartalfheim and the types of elves in Norse folklore, proposing everything from Christian influence to a tripartite class system among the elven races. None of these explanations seems complete, however. Unfortunately, a lack of primary sources means that the exact nature of Svartalfheim and the identity of its residents may never be fully understood. I believe that we are going to find the truth, and together we can do that. As we keep collectively gathering information and sharing it openly and willingly with everyone else, we are going to be the change that we wish to see. Now, if we could just get more people on board with all the free energy technology stuff to just start sharing their findings and all of their experiments with the world instead of being greedy and saying, oh, I'm going to go to the patent office. Well, the patent office is the gatekeeper, you know. They're stopping all of these amazing inventions from getting out to the populace. But now people are starting to learn that, hey, it takes us sharing information to get beyond this veil of deception. So we're going to keep going with this. And there's more stuff I got to add to this. I'm going to show you just now. Okay, so in looking for Loki, images of Loki, because Loki's a dark elf, guys. Loki's a dark elf brought up to Asgard into the realm of the light elves, okay? We know Loki's dark because he flip-flops. He flip-flops from good to evil. And he's a trickster. So he keeps, you know, doing all these crazy things. Like, he's considered crazy. I mean, look what he did. He goes and he mates with all these other goddesses or beings or creatures, and he creates all these weird subspecies of animals or creatures, you know, like Fenrir, the wolfman, and you know, the snake that got thrown down into the ocean, which is Leviathan, I'm sure. Anyway, so, you know, with Marvel, they've come out with all of this Thor series. Why? It's because it's relevant, you know, and like I said, I think someone's trying to remind us of who we truly are and what's truly going on. So this stuff is coming out more and more. And now this set of Thor, they say, see the dark elves up close. Thor, the Dark World, will introduce the dark elves of Svartalfheim into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And here's one of your first peeks at what they're going to look like. And so here they are. Look at this guy. Got the ears of the elf. He's pale, has pale hair, okay? It's not just because he's old. Some of them, I feel, have black hair because they have gone dark. But he's wearing black, the black suit. This is the black suit of dark magic, dark, you know, everything dark. When you wear black, you're absorbing the light, and it represents black or death. You know, it's the absence of light. So here's a character. This is what he looks like. And I'm telling you guys, These actual beings are somewhere in the world. We need to figure out who they are and where they are, because they've been using black magic against us to subvert our world and to trick us into being their slaves. And we have to wake up. We have to stop being slaves, and we have to just join together in mass to stop this thing that they created, 2,000 years ago, because that's when all this stuff happened. During the age of Aries was during the age of the Great War, the war in heaven and earth. And it can be seen. The evidence is in the Grand Canyon, all across Lemuria, because America is Lemuria. That's why it says, make Murica great again. Murica. Remember that slogan with Trump? We are in Mu, guys. And people are finding gold all out in the Grand Canyon and Utah and all of these other places out west. They're finding artifacts relating and pertaining to India and Egypt and all of these things, because it was a one world government. It was one world unified as one in love and intention and purpose during the beginning of the age of Aries. But as Aries progressed, I'm sure, because this happens every 26,000 years, the minds of men, not of the Asir, it was the minds of men turned downward in their light because they became proud. This is in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. Please go read this book. If you haven't read this before, you can read it online for free. Just go look it up, or you can listen to it on YouTube. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. It talks about how the minds of men turned downward, and that in order to stop this great demise of the earth, that the dweller there shifted the energies of the earth to cause the waters to rise from below and to swallow up all of the things that these men had created, because they were obviously creating vile things. I believe that they were splicing DNA together, just exactly what we're seeing today. We're seeing a reemergence of Atlantis and the Atlanteans and how they went downward in their consciousness. And the age of Aries is the highest state of consciousness for our existence here in Midgard. You can see this in astrotheology charts, where if you type in and you look for astrotheology chart, and I can go do that right now. Let me go pull this up for you so that you can know this. It's very important, okay, to grasp this whole thing and the nature of our world and what I'm talking about. I've been through so many different things that I'm putting all of these little breadcrumbs together, and they're fitting perfectly. Now, what we have before you is an astrotheology chart based on all of the constellations and your birth chart. This is everything right here. And it is all the information that you need to try to discern what is going on in the world. And in the middle, there is a human body, okay? Man, the shape of man is in the middle. And as you can see, up here near the crown chakra, which is the head, is Aries. And as we traverse these ages, see, we're over here in Pisces. We're leaving Pisces. So we're in between this age of Pisces and this age of Aquarius. We're at the feet going to the ankles. So we're about in the ankles right now, in between the two ages. And as we progress through the procession of the equinoxes through each age, which each age is about 2,150 years, give or take, because some of these star systems are actually larger than others. Some are smaller, some are larger. So it takes a little bit more time. As we progress, we go up the spiritual body in growth, up the chakra system. And in our consciousness, we come back up to the crown chakra, back up to the age of Aries, and then we fall back down to the feet, and we have to start over again. This was the fall of man that people hear about in religious texts. The fall of man is a fall in consciousness, and it happens with the breath of Brahma. And it happens with this cycle called the Great Year, or the procession of the equinoxes, We travel around, and as you can see, there's different sounds and geometric shapes that are representative of each age. And we get simplified. But then look, this triangle is a scalar wave shape. This means that we master this world, because this world is based on the tetragrammaton. The tetragrammaton is the matrix of all of existence, and it reacts and interacts with our consciousness, our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, everything, because we are electromagnetic. And when you begin to study all of these things, these mystical, magical arts that Christianity and all these other religions made people fear, you start understanding all of this, because it starts blending it together. It's why they made people fear knowledge. That's all it is knowledge. And they wanted to remove that from the minds of the masses so that they would not have the knowledge to know about this time, because they had the knowledge still. These dark elves, or, dwarves, whatever they are, they're underground, these beings, these entities, and they're practicing dark magical arts against you and I and everyone else who's here. And they've tried to erase the history, but we're coming back into our knowledge during the Great Awakening, because this is it right here. So we started back at the base of where, you put your feet on the path, right? So the 2 feet of Jesus, the 2 fish, this is representative of 2 fish of Pisces. And now we're going into this age of Aquarius, which is going up the shins, or, the calf area below the knee. We're going up this right now, and we've got 2 columns to stand upon, basically, because it takes 2 legs to stand on, and also as a foundation. So that's why you see a world divided right now. I'm looking at this in a symbolic viewpoint, because it started hitting me. This stuff is just coming to me naturally now. And the age of Aquarius, see, this is the water sign here, these 2 waves. What does it look like? Sine waves. What are we learning about? Frequencies. That's why this is the absolute truth that will never change. Even when we die, we reincarnate, we die, we come back. We're constantly going around this. This is the wheel of time. This is the celestial heavens over our head, which is a clock that determines the timelines. It is determined by all of the wandering stars, which is called planets, that oscillate back and forth. These stars are fixed in the firmament. And I'm believing this more and more. The more I go down these trails, I am forgetting what NASA has said. These people are tricksters. They're just like Loki, and they're putting it in our face in Hollywood. But until we grasp all of this, this is the real education that they never wanted us to know. And see, here's the Ouroboros. This is that snake that surrounds Midgard, because this snake is the recycle trap. It eats its tail, but then it comes and it's reborn again. It's a snake, and it's just a recycle until we grasp what all of this means. And we have to start incorporating light into our bodies more. And that light matters. That means your food, your clothes, your colors that you surround yourself with, all of the frequencies around us matter. We won't be seeing real changes until we exit Aquarius. Honestly, I downloaded information that it's going to be 200 years before we even really see these other races come back around us fully, and fully integrate back into our society. I think about 200 years will be that we know about the elves, and we know about the dwarves and the giants and stuff. It's going to start seeping back in. But right now we're experiencing the 2 foundations of the future, which is going to be the natural world and the septic world, or digital world, because that is the antithesis that does not support real life. But they're going to trick people to sell their souls into the machine, into the Borg, because there's some people that love that stuff and they absolutely embrace it wholeheartedly. But there's people like me that are going to be constantly coming around this wheel trying to teach people about the natural world and how we are supposed to just naturally evolve as souls, just traversing slowly to grab our light as we incarnate through each age. And that's the natural process. But, you know, some people are going to take the short path, which is what they're offering now, to enter yourself into this machine called the metaverse. You know, you get that, how they use metaverse versus the metaphysical. So metaphysical means that you're physical, okay? But it's of a higher nature. So it's meta, but in the metaverse, it's a fake world that they're going to invent for your mind, to trap your mind. And then we're going to come back all the way up here where we will be in allegiance, you know, with each other, because the golden age is represented right here. Look at this. This is going to be the golden age, and the silver age is over here. Bronze age is down there. Autumn, iron, winter. So we are leaving the winter age, which has been cold and dark. It has been what is representative down in Niflheim with the cold giant, you know, winter of frost and spirits and all this. It's dark, it's hard. But we're going up into the Iron Age, and the Iron Age is going to include all the computers and digital stuff. But then we're going to probably start moving away from that technology so much, and we're going to start getting back into our foundation of what it truly means to use the ether for our own good via our own mind. Because as we progress through all of these different shapes, we will eventually enter a singularity of our mind in the golden age, where we comprehend all of the other ages and what they mean, and also how to work with the ether with just our mind. And that means you could be sitting there in your place, wherever you live, because you probably won't have a square Saturnian box house, because we live in Saturn cubes as houses. You'll probably be sitting somewhere in a natural stone village or, you know, court, and you'll be able to just imagine making flowers or making things manifest right in front of you, just like Harry Potter. We live in the Harry Potter reality, but we've been in the denser part of it. And for me to comprehend all of this, I feel like, you know, I'm only remembering all this stuff. It's almost like it's triggering things inside of me as I collect information. And I can just put all of these images together, you know, air sign. I'm beginning to feel more closely associated to the elves in the sky. So I guess I came here for this mission, guys, because I mean, I can't tell you, I can't express how much I feel connected to things of the sky, like birds and the wind. I've played with the wind before, and I can move the clouds and stuff. I can like make them appear or disappear, and you can do these things too. Your element is your strongest point. So find out what your sun sign is and what the element it represents, and go play with nature, and you'll find your presence and your abilities if you just learn how to play and be open-minded again. All right, moving on. I'm going to move away from this. Okay, so coming into Loki, they've chosen this actor, I'm sure, because of his elf-like features. He has, you know, these delicate features. He's not very masculine. He's almost feminine in his nature. But it looks like they've probably maybe colored his hair to be darker than it originally was, because it looks like he has brown hair because his eyebrows aren't that dark, but he has blue eyes. And I say that, you know, he's just representative of a dark elf who was adopted by Odin, who is up there with the Aesir and the light elves. And so I don't really know the backstory of Loki and where he came from, but, you know, this is what I just get a sense of when I look at his image, of his depiction of what he's supposed to represent. Now, guys, I mean, come on, they put it in our face, right? This is Harry Potter and the Malfoy family. What do they represent? They represent dark elves. They are black magic practitioners. And, they come from Slytherin house. Slytherin, the snake, the serpent. Serpent of Asgard, down gnawing at the roots of the Asgardian tree, which is the tree of Yggdrasil. Yep, they put it in our face, y'all. It's just right in our face, and yet we don't grasp it. Why do you think? Think about this now, very deeply. Why do people love all of these movies that depict magical realms and all of these fantastic beings? Why do you think that? It's because something inside of them resonates very strongly with this truth. The truth is inside you. The truth is inside all of us. We just have to go within and find out who we truly are. What attributes do you resonate with? What types of music do you like? What era or epoch do you resonate with? Very, very important questions. I've asked myself many times these questions. Why do I like things that are of a Celtic nature? Things tied to Ireland, like river dance or fiddle music or just violins in general or harps and, anything to do with Ireland. That kind of Irish tradition is also found in movies as elvish tradition. So it started making a lot of sense to me. And then having hypnosis, wherever you are in the world, I suggest have a hypnosis session that will do a past life regression for you. The more you do this, the more you go into hypnosis and do past life regression therapy, you will dig for more truths that are hidden. I don't believe that one person can get it all out in one session because there's too many lifetimes that truly need to come up and be spoken about during a session. All of this information ties into things that were revealed in hypnosis for me, through other people who will also channel information for you when you're a practitioner. Sometimes it comes out and they tell you things about yourself that you didn't really realize until they spoke of it. But then, mostly it comes from your own subconscious mind about where you've been in your incarnations. And it's always important to learn these things. Yeah, so we just know that they're telling us information, and we have to start truly listening deeper. Let's chew on this some more, because all of the magic is coming back to the world, and it's right in our face if we just embrace it. So many people just don't believe it. This is what is ruling our world, and they are loving it because we do not recognize it for what it is. They are dark, magical elves that came up from below, and they are probably using the demons and trying to figure out how to give the demons bodies to come from below into our realm, just like the orcs, over in the Lord of the Rings, just like orcs came from underground, just like the orcs. Look, they have elf ears. What are they telling you? What are they telling you, huh? And they have the armor that would most likely be from dark dwarves. Right in our face, guys, right in our face. Got to start grabbing this. Grab it and chew on it and go find more, because I don't know about you, but I'm digging up these bones and I'm bringing them over to share with everybody. Dig the bones. Yep. Orcs, demons, the dead, Walking Dead. Why are they putting all this stuff in our face? Because it's real. Walking Dead is also representative of us because we're walking around like zombies. We are engrossed in the black mirror, which is our phone and our TV. Those are black scrying mirrors. They look into the future. It's why they put things on TV to show you the future. Yes, people, join me. Join my band of merry people and let's walk down this path and find all of these amazing truths all around us. If only more people had eyes to see. All right, so traversing some of this Norse mythology and also exploring Fintan McBokra, which is something my brother threw in the mix here. He reminded me about the Tuatha De Dannan. I had come across this term not that far in the past, but I didn't know exactly. I hadn't explored what this actually represents. So, and I don't really trust Wikipedia, but I figured for just a first introduction, it's okay to go ahead and maybe put some of this information here because it ties into the Norse myth. Tuatha De Dannan, and as we know, there's a woman out here, she's going by the last name Dannan, and she's all over YouTube right now as a spiritual leader and cheerleader. I stay clear of talking heads anymore because I know that there is a game afoot, a narrative to steer people away from the truth. And so I can't listen to a lot of these people, especially these spiritual gurus who are just emerged on the scene all of a sudden, even though they may claim that they've been doing this for, 20, 30 years. There's the first time I've ever heard of this person, Dannan, and I'm steering clear, just so you know. I can't involve myself with potential agents that are stopping the truth movement. So I'm just going to keep going with what I do, which is autodidactic, just like the autodidactic channel. Okay, the Tuatha De Dannan, which is Irish, meaning the folk of the goddess Danu, also known by the earlier name Tuatha De, tribe of the gods, are a supernatural race in Irish mythology. Again, supernatural means Asir, right? The Asir gods or something. Maybe they're the Watchers. I don't know. Many of them are thought to represent deities of pre-Christian Gaelic Ireland. The Tuatha De are often depicted as kings, queens, druids, bards, warriors, heroes, healers, and craftsmen who have supernatural powers. They dwell in the other world, but interact with humans in the human world. They are associated with the Deceit. I guess that's how they pronounce that. I don't know. Prominent ancient burial mounds such as Brú na Bwan, which are entrances to other world realms. Their traditional rivals are the Fomorians, who might represent the destructive powers of nature, and whom the Tuatha De defeat in the Battle of Mag Dwyd. Prominent members of the Tuatha De include the Dogda, the great god, the Morrigan, the great queen or phantom queen, Luge, Nuada, Angus, Brigid, Mananan, Diantic, the healer, and Goibniu, the smith, one of the Tuatha De Dannan, three gods of craft. Several of the Tuatha De are cognate with ancient Celtic deities, Lug with Lugus, Bridget with Bridjantia, Nuada with Nodons, and Agma with, maybe it's Agmoa. Medieval texts about the Tuatha De were written by Christians. Sometimes they explain the Tuatha De as fallen angels who were neither wholly good nor evil, or ancient people who became highly skilled in magic. But several writers acknowledged that at least some of them had been gods. Some of them have multiple names, but in the tales they often appear to be different characters. Originally, these probably represented different aspects of the same deity, while others were regional names. The Tuatha De eventually became the Cid folk or fairies of later folklore. Every aspect of history starts getting molded and blended as if in a blender, and it becomes very hard to discern for the truth. But as we keep digging and clicking all of these things into place, we will know the truth, but we have to keep moving forward. The old Irish word tuath, plural tuatha, means tribe folk or people. De is the genitive case of dia, and depending on context, can mean god, gods, goddess, or more broadly, supernatural being, object, or worship. In the earliest writings, the mythical race are referred to as the Tuatha De, tribe of gods, or Tuatha De, tribes of gods. In the Labor Bretnach, their name is translated into Latin as plebis diorum, god folk. However, Irish monks also began using the term Tuatha De or Tuath De to refer to the Israelites with the meaning people of God. Of course they do, because they're stealing and subverting something else, another meaning. Israel is a falsehood that became a reality. They drove out the Palestinians and overtook their land and settled and created Israel, Isis, Ra, El. And go listen to Jordan Maxwell, what he has to say about this, that there was no ancient Israel. It was Palestine. It was always Palestine, but they went and they invaded the farmland and made their own settlement where, you know, the chosen ones would be. And we know that the chosen ones are now the evil ones. So, and it's not all the people of Israel. It's these entities who have put themselves in control of everything. They're the ones we're after. With the meaning people of God is what the Israelites claim. Whatever. I don't believe it. Anyway, apparently to avoid confusion with the Israelites, writers began to refer to the mythical race as the Tuatha De Dannan or Tuatha De Dannan. The Old Irish pronunciation is Tuatha De Dannan, and the modern Irish pronunciation, Tuatha De Dannan. This is generally translated folk of the goddess Danu. It may also have been a way of humanizing them. Instead of god folk, they were now the folk of a particular goddess. Some of the Tuatha De are occasionally called the clan Eladen, children of art. Eladen. Doesn't that sound like Aladdin? Aladdin. Like magic, you know, the magic of Aladdin, Aladdin and the jinn. Okay. Danann is generally believed to be the genitive of a female name, for which the nominative case is not attested. It has been reconstructed as Danu, of which Anu, you know, Anu, Na, Ki, Anu of earth. Ki is earth, Anu was a god. Genitive Anan may be an alternative form. Anu is called mother of the Irish gods. Look at that. Look at that. You know, everybody's out here looking at the Sumerian stuff and saying, oh, this is a race of people, this Anunnaki. It is an entity. Anu is an entity. So I wish that more people could just maybe look at it from that perspective. This may be linked to the Welsh mythical creature Dawn. Hindu mythology also has a goddess called Danu, who may be an Indo-European parallel. However, this reconstruction is not universally accepted. It has also been suggested that Danann is a conflation of Dan, skill or craft, and the goddess name Anan. The name is also found as Danann or Damnan, which may point to the origin being pro-Celtic, Dan, meaning earth. Compare the Old Irish word for earth, domain, you know, domen, which is domain, right? Tarakan, described as the seed folk as De Terrini, earthly gods. The name could be cognate with the mythical Fir Domnan and British Domnani. Description: Tuatha De Dannan are described as a supernatural race, much like idealized humans who are immune from aging and sickness and who have powers of magic. Again, we're talking about an elvish race or the Asir. The powers most often attributed to the Tuatha De are control over the weather and the elements. We can do this, people. We aren't as powerful as some of these Tuatha De, but we can do this. And the ability to shapeshift themselves and other things. This is a thing, y'all. We've been hearing a lot about Sasquatch and the Dog Man and a lot of these other mythological creatures that are coming back into the collective conscience. And I believe that they're shapeshifters because they talk about the skinwalker wrench. You know, I mean, these things are real. We just have to embrace them and get more evidence. They are also said to control the fertility of the land. What did we see with some of those elves and the Asir? You know, they were fertility gods. Okay, The tale De Gabel in Deceit says the first Gaels had to establish friendship with the Tuatha De before they could raise crops and herds. They live in the other world, which is described as either a parallel world or a heavenly land beyond the sea or under the earth's surface. So what did we see? If you saw Lord of the Rings, the elves, they go back to their world and they get in a boat and they leave. They take Bilbo Baggins with them in the movie The Hobbit, at the end of it all. Okay, yeah, or under the earth's surface. So, that would imply that they're going hopefully not to a dark place of evil, but I don't know. Many of them are associated with specific places in the landscape, especially the Sid mounds, the ancient burial mounds and passage tombs, which are entrances to other world realms. Why have we seen, earth mounds, Indian mounds, they call them Indian mounds. They're passages, y'all. There's one of these in Macon, Georgia, the Okmulgee Indian Mound. There's an Okmulgee monument, and it looks exactly like this, where it has an entrance. You go inside, and I guarantee you what they did is they covered up the entrance to an underground passage, if that's what this is about. But I still feel like some of these mounds are actually buried giants, and we need to be discovering that. The Tuatha De can hide themselves with Feth Fiada, magic mist, and appear to humans only when they wish to. We've also heard about this magic mist potentially being part of what Sasquatch can do. Sasquatch has this amazing way of just not being around at all, ever. Nobody can find a body. No one can find any evidence. They've seen them from time to time. They've heard them from time to time, but they can magically sort of disappear. Go watch Missing 411, The Hunted, and watch the very last scene, with this woman hunter. Oh my gosh, people. Yeah, it's going to blow you away what she saw. I can't reveal that because I'm going to let that be a surprise to you, but that was amazing. Okay. In some tales, such as Bale and Scale, a king receives affirmation of his legitimacy from one of the Tuatha De. In other tales, a king's right to rule is affirmed by an encounter with an otherworldly woman. It has been argued that the inauguration of Irish kings originally represented his ritual marriage to the goddess of the land. The Tuatha De can also bring doom to unrightful kings. They keep the timelines in order. They might be the Watchers, what we know of as the Watchers. I don't know. The medieval writers who wrote about the Tuatha De were Christians. Sometimes they explain the Tuatha De as fallen angels. They're going to say that if it's coming out of the Vatican, like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism have, then they're going to negate some of the things, and they're going to switch the meaning of things and the representation of what all these other people or beings out here are. Neutral angels who sided neither with God nor Lucifer and were punished by being forced to dwell on the earth. And it could be. Or humans who had become highly skilled in magic. However, several writers acknowledge that at least some of them had been gods. Maybe they're just making their way back up. I don't know. But it sounds like they have these amazing abilities that have been gifted to the ones who build their light. It takes a lot of work, guys. It's us. We have to work on our light. When we do, we ascend. If we don't, we just either stay in purgatory or we sink down, depending on what our choices are. There is strong evidence that many of the Tuatha De represent the gods of Irish paganism. The name itself means tribe of gods, and the 9th century tale of Tuan Mac Caril speaks of the Tuatha De Aucas Ande, tribe of gods and ungods. Okay, so Anu is called mother of the Irish gods. Isn't that interesting? Anu is a mother of the Irish gods, not just over in Samaria. I believe they're trying to throw people off the trail because Zachariah Sitchin was actually working for the CIA, is something that I found out recently. All these people have their time in the sun to be misinformation agents. And I'm not sure we should be listening to anyone except just doing our own work and just turning off everyone else that's talking. Okay, Nit, a god of war, and Bridget, a goddess of poets, whose father is the Dogda, his own name meaning the great god. Writing in the 7th century, Tyricon explained the Cid folk as earthly gods, while Fiox hymn says the Irish adored the Cid before the coming of St. Patrick. Okay, and here's all these names. Flides, the mistress of animals, are invoked in incantations, further evidence that they were seen as supernatural powers. Several of the Tuatha De are cognate with ancient Celtic deities. Nevertheless, John Carey notes that it is not wholly accurate to describe all of them as gods in the medieval literature. Literary Tuatha De are sui generis and suggest immortals might be a more neutral term. Okay. Tuatha De Dannan were descended from Nimid, leader of a previous wave of inhabitants of Ireland. They came from 4 cities to the north of Ireland, Thalius, Gorius, Murius, and Phineas, where they taught their skills in the sciences, including architecture, arts, magic, including necromancy. Yeah, this is getting into the dark arts a little bit. According to Lebor Gabala, Erin, they came to Ireland in dark clouds and landed on mountains of the Conmanse Rain in Connachta, otherwise Sliab and Laraine. I know I'm attacking these words, but I don't speak Gaelic. And they brought a darkness over the sun for 3 days and 3 nights. They immediately burnt the ships so that they should not think of retreating to them. And the smoke and the mist that came from the vessels filled the neighboring land and air. Therefore, it was conceived that they had arrived in clouds of mist. This sounds not of the light, y'all. Not of the light. I wouldn't think that benevolent light beings would arrive in dark clouds and dark mist. You know, that sounds like some of the movies I've seen too. Not only Pirates of the Caribbean, but there's another one where it's called The Mist and it takes over. Interesting, right? A poem in the Lebor Gabala Erin says of their arrival, "It is God who suffered them, though he restrained them. They landed with horror, with lofty deed. In their cloud of mighty combat of specters upon a mountain of Connacht, without distinction to discerning Ireland, without ships, a ruthless curse. The truth was not known beneath the sky of stars, whether they were heaven or of earth." Sounds like they came to deceive and to possibly take over. So that's why you got to figure out who's who on the battlefield with these new characters once you come across them. Are they good or are they bad? They could be part of the faction of elves, these dark elves or fallen angels. So from them are the Tuatha De and Ande, whose origin the learned do not know, but that it seems likely to them that they came from heaven on account of their intelligence and for the excellence of their knowledge. Led by King Nuada, they fought the first battle of Mag Tuatha on the west coast, in which they defeated and displaced the native Fomorians. So the Fomorians, we need to traverse the Fomorians. The Fomorians are spoken of to be of giant descent, or they are giants. Okay, the Tuatha De Dannan then fought the second battle of Mag Tuatha against the Fomorians. Nuada was killed by the Fomorian king, Balor's poisonous eye, but Balor was killed by Lu, champion of the Tuatha De, and who then took over as king. So this Tuatha De took over as king. Okay, these Tuatha De women, they had 3 husbands, Macul, Macsec, and Macgrain. They were kings of the Tuatha De Dannan at that time. Okay, so wrapping this up, I feel like, this Tuatha De is an aspect of the Yggdrasil story, and that these Fomorians are a part of it because the Fomorians are giants. Now we look at the Fomorians. Okay, they're a supernatural race in Irish mythology who are often portrayed as hostile and monstrous beings. Originally, they were said to come from under the sea or the earth. Later, they were portrayed as sea raiders and giants. Okay, giants. They are enemies of Ireland's first settlers and opponents of the Tuatha De Dannan, the other supernatural race in Irish mythology. That's what we just covered. Although some members of the two races have offspring, the Tuatha De defeat the Fomorians in the Battle of Mag Tued. This has been likened to other Indo-European myths of a war between gods, such as the Aesir and Vanir in Norse mythology, and the Olympians and Titans in Greek mythology. One theory is that the Fomorians were supernatural beings representing the wild or destructive powers of nature, personifications of chaos, darkness, death, blight, and drought. What are we seeing today? What are we seeing today? We have the same events going on. You know, they've been trying to create droughts, which they've done, you know, throughout time with the Great Depression and stuff, and blight. We've seen that in our timeline and not so distant history. Of course, death, lots of death. They've caused wars, which there are basically huge human sacrifices to their gods, and the badges that the people wear are the gods of which they sacrifice them to. And then we have darkness and chaos. I mean, this is all of these. This is like the trifecta of what's going on, but you can add some more junk to this list with what's going on with this great deception and this war that we're in. Yeah, people, I just suggest maybe looking at some of this stuff even further on your own and dive into this. If you're truly interested in any of this, because I can't cover everything, but I'm going to throw this out there so that hopefully people will pick up these little breadcrumbs and run to the four winds and figure this stuff out, because it's coming. Like the truth is going to be opened up by 2030, and we're going to know everything as long as we keep sharing. And we're going to race against time, and so are they, because their singularity moment is 2030 from what I've been hearing online, that they can't alter the timelines. They can't use their black magic anymore, because we're entering into the age of Aquarius officially, and it's going to be just more firmly planted in it, and everything's going to be revealed. That's prophesized. This happens every 26,000 years. It comes back around, and we come back to this moment where it might be kind of a different setup and situation, but it's all the same. They have their time. Darkness has its time to play during the age of Pisces. And then after Pisces is done, it's time for us to come back into our knowing of who we truly are and where we're going. So you can come and read some of this stuff. It ties into all of this cosmology that I'm covering right now. So deep dive, people, keep going. Share the love, share the wisdom. Let's hold hands and let's all march into the future together, because we're going. And I am so ecstatic about this. I can't wait to find more. I'm on the trail, guys. See you in the next one.